Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be making a Nigerian snack called chinchin. If you'd like to see how I went from this batter to this dough, please keep watching. So this is the list of ingredients that I'll be using for this recipe. So first, into a bowl I'm adding 1 cup of flour. I'm just sieving it to allow air into the flour and to get rid of particles I don't need for this flour. After doing that, I'll be adding sugar. So I'm using 4 tablespoons of granulated sugar, and then I'm giving it a good mix to make sure it's finely incorporated with the flour. After that, I'll be adding butter to this recipe. So I used 2 tablespoons of butter, but as I was mixing this, I'm supposed to have a bread crumb-like consistency, but this was just sticky and the dough was just in my hand. At first I was like, oh, I'm giving up on this dough. You can see how messy it looks, but I was just like, okay, let me see, we can make this work, but trust me guys, this was so sticky. So I just keep pushing it out of my hands, and I had another cup of flour sieved on the side, so I just keep adding them one after the other. So just add little flour to this if you're a beginner, and when you're baking and you're having sticky dough like this, just add a little bit of flour, a little bit at a time, and just work it all the way through to make sure your hands are not sticky again. And don't overwhelm the batter, just a little bit at a time, and give it a good mix. And you can see it's coming together, all the stickiness has gone down, and you can see it's coming to a fine smooth batter. So that's one way to get rid of a sticky batter and to continue using your batter instead of throwing it out. So I continue doing this until I notice that it's a bit good and it's no longer sticky. So next I'm adding my ingredients. I added nutmeg powder, a pinch of salt, and I'm also going to be adding baking powder and 1 egg. So immediately I added this egg and gave it a good mix again. Oh my goodness, it was as sticky as it could be again. So I continued and repeated the whole process of adding a little bit of flour to this to reduce the stickiness. If this is your first time visiting my channel, you're welcome. Please support me by subscribing to my channel, as I upload new recipes every week, and I'll be glad to have you in the Mogus Meals family. And after that, I'm just adding a little bit of evaporated milk to this recipe, and after mixing it again, oh my goodness, same stickiness. Yeah, because the batter was ruined from the beginning of not having the breadcrumb like consistency with the butter, because it was just all sticky. That's why I had this sticky process till the end. So I keep adding a little bit of flour one after the other to get rid of all the stickiness from my hands and make sure the dough is forming into a dough and not really sticky and messy. And after doing this, you can see it's coming together. It looks like a dough. I'm just getting rid of all the butter in my hands, and you can see it's almost good. So I'm just getting rid of all the butter in my hands, make sure they merge together with the dough that is on the prep table, and I'm gonna be mixing this together and tell you guys that this could work. So like I said, don't overwhelm the dough, just add a little bit of flour, and make sure at the end of it your dough is a little bit soft and not too hard. If not, you're gonna have a very hard chinchin. So I'm just giving it a good mix and working my dough. I'm just kneading it to make sure it's a bit soft, and you can see all the batter mixed together. It's looking like one fine dough. You wouldn't even know it went through the process of looking so ugly before it became so fine and looking as good as this. So that's my batter. It's looking smooth, so I'm just gonna cut it out and make it into the chinchin. So I'm just adding flour to my prep table, and I'm dividing the batter into the dough into two, and after dividing it, I'm just gonna roll it out, and then I'll start the cutting of the chinchin process. So I remembered I threw out my rolling pin, so I'm using the bottle. So if you don't have a rolling pin, you can use the bottle to roll out your dough. So I'm just using the bottle I have available at home to roll out my dough into a fine rectangular shape, if it looks rectangular. Yeah, and after that I'm lining my baking pan with baking paper, since I'll be using the baking method for this, not the frying method. So I'll be baking it in the oven. That's why I added baking powder to the batter when I was mixing. So I'm just cutting it into straight lines before making it into a smaller shape. So you can do whatever shape you want, but I like doing the small bits of squares. So you can see I'm just cutting it and then placing it into the baking paper on the tray. So you can just repeat this whole process and cut all the way through. So after cutting them, you can see I'm just rubbing them with more flour and I'm just placing them on the tray. You want to make sure they are not sticky. You can see how they look on the baking tray. You want to make sure they are not sticky, they're properly spaced out. You can add a little bit of flour to this. You can see as I'm doing, I'm just drizzling a little bit of flour on the chinchin that is cut, and to make sure they are not sticky and they are not joining together when baking. And I noticed that my pan is not full, so I'm just going to be rolling out some dough and add it to the pan to make sure it's a bit full before baking. And if you're still watching and you've not subscribed to my channel, please support me by subscribing to my channel. So I upload new recipes every week, and I'll be glad to have you in the Muga's Meals family. And if you like this video so far, please don't forget to like, share and give it a thumbs up, and share with friends and family as well, and for also beginners that are learning how to bake for first time. Thank you. So I'm just cutting out more chinchin and placing it in the baking tray, as you can see, to make sure my tray is filled up before baking. So after that, you can see my tray is looking a bit full than before. So I'm just going to be baking it in the oven at 180 for 30 minutes. So after baking for about 15 minutes halfway through, you have to come and check on this guy and give it a mix through. So when you're turning it, you'll notice that the ones that are facing the bottom of the pan are getting brown. So you just want to change them so they're all cooked properly. It's not one side of the chinchin being cooked. So you just want to mix it or flip it over to make sure they are cooked. That's what I'm just doing now. And then allow to bake again for another 15 minutes until they're coming and looking golden brown. So after baking for 30 minutes fully, this is how my chinchin look like. You can see they're golden brown, they look good, they're all crunchy. Oh my goodness, you need to perceive the aroma in my kitchen. It's all nice and smelly good. So this is how my chinchin look like. It looks good and it tastes yum. Thank you for watching.